The features found on Hogslat's free access stall make it simply the best you can buy for your operation. The stalls are manufactured from galvanized 12-gauge tube and 5/8 inch rod with stainless steel assembly hardware. Adjustable stainless steel feet insert into stainless steel legs and pivot to a slat opening. The gate mechanism consists of large stainless steel pivot points allowing for trouble-free activation without weights or springs. To learn more about our free access stalls, go to our website at www.hogslat.com.
Okay, our next speaker is Malcolm Turley. Malcolm is a Kentucky native and graduate of the University of Kentucky. He joined PIC in 1988 and has held several roles within the company, including managing a farrow-to-finish farm, working in customer service, and handling boar inventory logistics. Malcolm currently works with the Gene Transfer Center partners and helping lead training for selection officers and ensure gilts and boars meet PIC quality standards. So with that, let's give a warm welcome to Malcolm.
What's the events?
Just the arrows there.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Today, I'd like to talk to you about understanding sow lameness and how to mitigate its influence on mortality. And so I think today, as we go through, we certainly know the results of lameness. We certainly see has some genetic control. We certainly know it has a great financial impact. The question is, well, does our staff, do they recognize it? Do they know what to do? Do they see the symptoms or do they see the signs of it and be able to effectively go out and treat those animals? So just to set the stage a little bit on sow removal reasons, and I think you heard it earlier, locomotion continues to be one of the highest reasons for sow removal reasons as we look at that, followed closely by reproductive reasons. But what can we do to influence those locomotions, so feet and leg wise? So 3 areas to focus on today. I'd like to look at lameness and pitfalls. I'd like to also look at flow, facilities, and environment. And then lastly, mitigation, where we spend most of our time on selection and structure. So lameness and pitfalls. Certainly all of these areas are areas that we see that can influence, or we can see lameness have problems with structure, transport, disease, injury, environment, wrong handling, and overweight. We obviously want to prevent any environmental and management-based risk, watch for early signs, and certainly treat animals as soon as we can. When we go through the barns, I think about that we have, that we're looking with our eyes wide open. That when we go through, we're watching for lameness. Do our staff, do they know what to look for in lameness? If the sow's suddenly toe tapping, do they know that that's what she's trying to indicate to us? Do inspections regularly. Obviously, one of the best times is after we've fed in the morning to go out and look for lameness and look at those sows. But do we take the time, and do we take the time to train our staff? I think so many times today we have staff that didn't grow up on a farm, so maybe they don't know what to look for or where to look for. So do we go out and show folks, hey, here's what you need to look for, and here's what she's showing you. We need to be cognizant of that, make sure we take the time to do that. Flow, facilities, and environment. Here's a repair that was done in a transport in a trailer, but I would challenge that they made the repair, right? But it still looks like it's big enough for me for a foot or a toe to get hung in there. So maybe we didn't make it correctly. So going back and making sure that we look at those repairs that were made and that we go ahead and try to, make the correct repair. What about in our facilities as we look at slats? Are they in good shape? Do we notice T-bolts that are sticking up? I was in a finisher last week and they had the T-bolts exactly how they should be with the head of the bolt smooth, so it's not stop popping up where pigs won't step on that. That can cause injury. Let's spend a little bit more time on mitigation strategy, and here I think talking about the sizing of our multiplication for herd replacements. Today, as we look through the history, and in particular at the PIC lines, I would tell you that those lines have really changed over the years. And as we think about more growth, more pigs per sow per year, more efficient, more muscling, just more of everything. So suddenly those pigs that filled up a pen that was maybe only 25 head at, and now those same 25 head suddenly fill that pen up a lot more today than they did before. Here's where I'd like to talk about gilt breeding target, and that is where, our breeding crew will do whatever they can to hit gilt breeding target. But I think and somebody talked about earlier about the quality of the gilt that we're going to breed. But here, do we look at, do we try to hit a number? So do we have a selection rate or a gilt utilization rate? I think that's so critical about, are we bringing in the right number of pigs here that we can meet our gilt breeding target with. I would tell you, or we would say from PIC, we'd like to see you target 10 to 15% of your total herd size as far as for your herd replacement multiplication. I've got a scenario here where we look at, we've got 90, this particular flow needs 90 replacement gilts per week, okay? And we've got a pool of 100. Well, that'll tell you something right there, that we've got only 10 gilts that we can cull out of here. So that's a problem right there. But after evaluation, we've got 70 gilts left, right, that meet our standards. So we're 20 gilts short. So we're 20 gilts short, and yet we're going to have to hit what? Our breeding target. We know we've got to hit breeding target. So we're going to spend $1.50 a day, let's say, on housing those gilts and feeding them. So we're spending $30 a day on gilts that we're not real sure they're going to stay around. They weren't gilts that probably met our standards, yet we went ahead and brought them back in. So this isn't the place for one-hit wonders where they only get to first parity and then exit, right? We want these gilts to stay around in the third and fourth parity where they become much more productive. And we're able to extract all that genetic material and genetic merit out of those gilts. Maybe we look at our facilities and we talk about the increase in PSY over the years and talk about maybe our facilities were able to handle 26 to 27 PSY, and now suddenly we're at 27 or maybe 30 plus. So suddenly the same amount of pigs in here. I always say you can't put more pigs in a pen and expect more select gilts out. It doesn't work that way. Just looking at gilt standards, 3 things here: reproductive criteria, feet and legs, and then we like for gilts to have a minimum of 1.2 lifetime average daily gain. Obviously, first things first with reproductive side, normal appearing vulva, and for PIC, those gilts would have 14 normal appearing teats. What do we look for? We look for gilts that are longer striding, that are flexible, gilts that have more slope or more angle to their front end. So those gilts that are able to withstand the rigors of concrete, kind of like a shock absorbing. And we'll look at some videos here in a second. Just some of the things we might select against. Not all the things we typically could see, but certainly some of the things: blind anus, belly ruptures, open wounds, dip backs, are just some of the things to cull against. This is a leg scoring system that was developed by Dr. Max Rothschild here at Iowa State. It's something we've incorporated at PIC. Where the PIC logo is are the leg scores, if you will, that would deem a PIC select. So it's a rather simple scoring system on the front legs, 1 being an animal that couldn't get up, to 9, an animal that's more sloping forward, some more slope or more flexibility to the front legs. On the back legs, you can see scores 2 through 4 are more set under or more sickle hawked, if you will. Scores 5 and 6 are slightly set under to a little more straight, and pigs 7 and 8 on the rear legs are much more straight or posty-legged. Just a little bit about the structure and what we're looking at here as far as when that angle of the shoulder blade is really close to 90 degrees, that's when we've got a pig that's really straight or posty. So what we want is an angle that's much greater than 90 degrees on the front legs, so that those animals are able to withstand and be flexible and certainly have more shock absorbing ability. And so they're actually putting their weight, if you will, on a larger area of their foot as they walk, versus the animals that are really straight and post-legged. They're putting the weight of their the weight of their body on a much smaller area of their foot. And that constant pressure is constant, constantly beating on those joints, and arthritis starts to set in. This was a study done back in 2006, but just to show that front leg scores, this is about 1,000 head, but front leg scores in the circled orange there, and you can see the scores of 5, 6, 7, and 8 survive much longer than the scores on the front legs of 4. Looking at the rear legs, the same study, we can see that those rear leg scores of 5 and 6 lasted and didn't exit as early as we saw the scores of 4 and 7. So just some quick looks at some movements here, and just to look at these and kind of talk about these just a little bit. How many people like to bring that gilt back in the herd? Breeder today? I'm short on breeds. I got to bring her in, right? What about this gilt? Anybody? No takers? What about that gilt? Not so much. It hurts her to walk, right? So, when you think about those gilts like that we've got to bring in the herd, and we're left with, do we leave her a space open, or do we bring up and breed a gilt like that? Do we really think that she's going to stay around and not fall out? It's pretty hard for her to get through there. Versus, let's look at a gilt like this and don't comment on her condition, but just merely watch how she walks. Hopefully you see a gilt there that's much more fluid in her movement, a gilt that really withstands and able to have that shock absorbing ability as she goes through on the slats. I think there's no shortcuts here. We got to do the basics every day. The pig knows the difference between are you in the alleyway or in the pen. These are our next generation of herd gilts. So I would challenge you that we need to be in the pens. We need to make sure that we have water availability, make sure that the water flows right. So for nursery, that's a ½ liter a minute, or for the finisher. And that paint can, if you fill up a paint can in 12 seconds, that's roughly a ½ liter. Or in the finisher, 6 seconds for a spray can will be a liter. What about spacing? I think on spacing, we can't, this isn't a cafeteria style where suddenly you can choose, and we can crowd them in the nursery, but then we're going to spread them out after that. It doesn't work that way. These are our next generation herd gilts. Let's treat them right the whole way through. So in-pen checks, air quality, feed, all the things we've been talking about all day, things we need to do every day. They all can't be P20s, but here's an example of a gilt more affectionately known as Great Grandma, is a Cambarol. And if you look at her reproductive numbers, are pretty good. I probably would have been pretty scared to probably even breed her up in 14 or 15 parities, but these guys did. But she didn't get that way because she had poor legs. She wasn't like those gilts we saw that we said we wouldn't bring back in the herd, right? So obviously she had good locomotion. She was able to withstand the rigors of concrete, but she was able to survive. So with that, thank you. Be glad to entertain any questions. If you need any literature or any further posters or whatever, we'll be glad to get those to you. So, thank you.
Made up a little bit of ground on time, so I suppose we can open up just a few questions here before Dr. Linares would speak then.
God put us behind, so on that area. I thank you for your talk today. I know this is a South Summit, but I tend to like the boys a little bit. So do we make the same selection criteria for the boars? And what do you think is the leading cause of lameness in boar studs?
Yeah, good question. We do the same criteria. We would apply the same criteria. I think equally in boar studs, I think folks, maybe we go too fast and don't look and find boars that are lameness, or boars that are lame. I think, we see the same things, whether it's bolts or slats or whatever sticking up that we just don't observe. And you think about in boars, a little bit different. We're constantly watching them a lot more because we're taking them to collection, back from collection. So we got the great opportunity to watch them
Yeah, we go for a walk every week.
every day or every week. Yeah, so we've got a great opportunity to do that. Again, do we take the time, and does our staff know what to look for to make sure that they know how to react? And it's so much different, right, between treating that sow or boar or whatever on day 1 versus day 3 or 4. So the chance of them coming back to 100% much better when we can intervene early.
So in pin gestation system, you're gonna have more, what I call soft tissue damage, just from fight, there is fighting. So how do you, it isn't always just a structural issue,
Yeah.
but is there anything to do for that?
We get that question a lot. Do you select differently for gilts going into pin gestation? And we actually don't. I think, again, it's about management. I mean, we all don't like to see sows fight, and that's one of the thing that people don't understand when we put them in pin gestation. But from a selection standpoint, we would still adhere to the same standards. So again, I think it's about walking those pins, finding those animals, treating them on day 1, and really being aggressive about being able to find them. Yep.
How does crate size, width impact lameness in crate gestation? Is there a lot of lameness that comes from like stepping on your neighbor's toes a little bit?
I think some of that can happen. I don't know the answer on what percentages, but or what widths work better. But I think equally, I see crates where, where there's a sharp bar, where we could maybe put a piece of PVC pipe over it to make it smooth because the neighbor's feet are sticking across the way. But yeah, maybe it's something we need to look into more on that side of things. Good.
All right, if there's no more questions, put our hands together for Malcolm.